welcome to Around the Lens, episode 36. I'm your host, David J. Murphy, a visual journalist with about 16 or so years' experience in the visual journalism field, currently working in Biloxi, Mississippi.
And I'm your co-host, Zach D. Roberts. I'm a photojournalist who works in New York and Alaska. I've worked for BBC, The Guardian, but most recently I've been working on a documentary called The Best Democracy Money Can Buy.
Around the Lens, in case you've never watched or listened to the show before, is a live weekly visual journalism roundtable show airing every Monday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. We are broadcasting live this August 8th, 2016. The show features experts from the world of visual journalism gathering to discuss news, topics, and gear related to our career field. We focus primarily on photojournalism and documentary filmmaking. You can like us on Twitter and or Instagram. Subscribe to the podcast via iTunes, Google Play, or directly via your podcatcher of choice. Finally, if you'd like to support us financially and be the very first one ever to support us financially, which, by the way, you can go to Patreon and drop us $1. You'll get access to our bonus topics and some other stuff that you can check out on there, some really nice perks. So go check that out. And all the links I mentioned are at our website, www.aroundthelens.com. Just click on the Connect to Us button. Okay, our panelists this week are newcomer Ron Hamilton out of Hawaii and returning panelist David Wells. Guys, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves in the order as I said your name.
My name is Ron Hamilton. I live here in Honolulu, Hawaii. I'm a photojournalist. And most recently, I am a foreign correspondent from the Philippines for Eagle Broadcasting Corporation. Eagle News.
Nice. Nice. How's the weather down there in Hawaii?
It's exactly how you'd imagine it to be. Perfect.
Perfect. I gotta say, it's pretty hot here in Mississippi. I was out at the beach the other day, and it's like an oppressive type heat. Does it ever get that kind of hot down in Hawaii, or is it always perfect?
It can be hot and muggy. But typically it's really perfect weather. It doesn't get above 84 typically.
Wow.
It can be a bit humid, but it's mostly perfect.
Okay. Well, I hate you. But moving on, tell us a little bit about your career real quick. Who are you? How did you get to where you are?
Well, a tangled course throughout the years, several different career paths. Eventually, it was probably about 2001 when I got laid off from the telecom industry. I started doing reports for the Philippines for a network there, Net 25. I think my first story was the Texas Folklife Festival in San Antonio. And ever since then, I've been doing stories. Eagle Broadcasting Corporation was founded a couple years ago, and I've been doing for them lately, since then.
Nice. All right, great. And our returning panelist, David. David, how's things going for you since the last time we chatted?
Things are going well. I'm slowly continuing my evolution into video and less print stuff. My background in terms of those who are new to seeing me is I spent about 5 years doing newspaper work in California, Texas, and then upstate New York. And since 1986, wow, 30 years. I've been freelance mostly as a magazine photographer, and about 6 years ago started transitioning into video. And these days, the majority of what I'm doing is video first with still second, rather than the other way around. I live in a relatively small market, Providence, Rhode Island, but there aren't that many people who are doing quite what I'm doing. So far, things have been really pretty good the last couple of years.
Awesome. You mentioned that this is your 30th year in the field. Do you remember what day or what month you started?
Well. Actually, the first published photograph that I ever shot was actually November 9th of 1979. And I was 6 months out of college, and there was rioting related to the Iran hostage under Carter at the time, and I was in Beverly Hills, and I took a picture that ended up running in the LA Times. And I don't know, they may pay me a whopping $50, but I thought, this is brilliant. You get to go out and do whatever you want, take incredible pictures, and they pay you money! Right. And so after about 5 years of working for newspapers, I realized I was not that well suited to working with other people, and I wanted to do my own project. So that's basically what I've done ever since.
Okay. No, I was just going to say, if you knew the exact day and month, we could be celebrating it when it came up. I don't know.
Nope.
All right. Well, perhaps we'll have you do an Instagram story for us someday in the future. In case you didn't know, Instagram is pretty much copied Snapchat, and we were going to do Snapchat stories of Around the Lens panelists, but forget that nonsense. Instagram stories, that's where it's at. All right. We got a lot of great stuff for you to talk about this week, so let's get right into the show with our first topic of the week, our news of the week. And we touched on this a little bit last week towards the end of the show. If you stuck around for the whole 2 hours, you got to hear 9 people talking about it. But we're talking a little bit about Getty. Getty, of course, huge photo distributor, employs many of the people who have been on this show, and basically, overall, a pretty great organization, at least until this recent debacle that came about. Quick background, what happened was essentially that Getty somehow acquired more than 18,000 images shot by a Carol Highsmith. Obviously this is her entire career's worth of photography. And what Carol did was she essentially donated her work to the Library of Congress for people to use completely free of charge. So that's all well and good. Now the problem, of course, comes into play when you've got entity like Getty or whoever taking this imagery and now holding it that's theirs, and then when people use that imagery, charging them for using it. So that's where Carol has the most sort of ire with Getty about this, because essentially she put it out there for people to use free of charge. She didn't give up her copyright. She still retains her copyright to the imagery, and what Getty is doing is essentially taking it and thinking that it's public domain, which, if it's completely public domain, then they're not in the wrong, but in this case, they aren't public domain. They're meant to be used for free. So she's charging them for $1 billion, which sounds like a lot of money, and it is. Trust me, it's I think about a third or fourth of their net worth. But she's using precedent when she's making this number up. Essentially, that another photographer was able to sue Getty for $1 million for their misusing and misappropriating one image. So her basic thinking is, well, I'm not charging them $18,000 million. I think that'd be $18 billion, maybe. I don't know. Anyways, she just wants $1 billion. I think it's more just. I don't think she's going to get that. I don't think Getty's going to have to pay that. But it's more to make a point. So, anyways, what do you guys think about this case? Do you think it's valid? Do you think it's overblown? Do you think Getty is in the wrong? Do you think that she's in the wrong? What are your thoughts on this?
Well,
Dave,
sure. I'll take slightly counter view, if you will, which is there are many institutions out there. Actually, the Getty Museum in LA, just as one example, but hundreds of museums that license the images that are in their collection to artists and museums and historians and things like that. And though they don't own the actual work, because the work's often in the public domain, they still charge for that. So one of the things that I've read in the subtext is Getty's defense is they're going to argue they're doing that. Whether or not they really are is open to debate. But I just wonder how they're going to try to get around the obvious problem they've set themselves up with, and also will we end up in an ironic situation where other libraries and archives and people who are licensing what is ostensibly public domain work, historical work, etc., are those other organizations actually going to come down ironically on the side of Getty, which would be a fascinating way to see this thing play out.
No, I agree. I'm looking forward to seeing the resolution of this case. My first thought was, and I was wrong, but my first thought was, golly, if she's not protecting her copyright by letting it out, then they can do what they want. Evidently, that is incorrect. Copyright is not the same as trademark. Trademark, if you don't protect it, you can lose it. But copyright, no, you retain copyright forever. Well effectively forever.
The other question, well, actually, copyright is actually the lifetime of the creator plus 70 years.
Yeah, right. Effectively forever, right.
Yeah. So one of my questions, actually, which I haven't read enough about, was has she registered? There's one thing to donate to the Library of Congress, but in 2001, the Library of Congress instituted bulk registration, and I actually have been one of those people who's been compulsive or diligent registering all of my work since 2001. as unpublished work. And so I have this hammer, which in the last few years I've been able to use a couple times in some infringement cases. And I'm assuming, but I don't know, if she's registered her work. If she has, in fact, that sort of doubles or triples Getty's problem, because the law is quite clear that if the work is registered, she has an enormous hammer.
Yeah, I've been scanning through the actual complaints and exhibits, and I guess actually Exhibit C is one example of copyright management information provided in connection with a Highsmith photo on the library website is attached. So it looks at least as though that she actually, because that was one question that I had, is whether she released it in the public domain and whether it's completely gone. She's just basically allowing, I guess, people in the United States to use her photos through the Library of Congress, but not actually giving up the copyright in any way, shape, and form, or doing anything. So, yeah, Getty, this is going to be tough. I mean, I don't see anyone filing $1 billion, but unless something weird happens, it should be a relatively big number, at least depending on how many images they sold. Because I mean, that could be one way kind of out of it, is that if they didn't sell all 18,000, then there's only a percentage they could argue or something, you know. But I don't know.
Well, it goes back to what David said with regard to registering a copyright. You own the copyright of whatever you do, whether or not you register it. But if you want to claim, I think, damages of a certain amount, you have to register it.
Any damage, if you don't register it, you're basically owed the use fee. If you do register it, you're owed the use fee, lawyers' fees, and a very serious punitive hammer up to $250,000 an image, which no one ever gets, but that's the hammer. And so I'm very curious if she has that hammer, because if she does have that hammer on some or all of it, they're in a lot of trouble. If she doesn't have the hammer, because it's one thing to give the work to the Library of Congress and let them do this, but if she doesn't have that hammer, it's going to play out very differently, just because copyright law is very clear in terms of if you have the registration, you've got a hammer. And if you don't, unfortunately, you don't have the hammer. And it's pretty straightforward law. And so I'm hoping, of course, she has that hammer for all of our sake.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely think it's going to change the way Getty does business. And I think it's going to potentially create some interesting precedent with regard to other cases that might pop up or are similar. But I definitely think that, you know, Carol is the wronged party here, and I'm really just kind of disappointed in Getty for what they're doing, and really disappointed in the idea that, you know, stuff that's public domain, you know, stuff that goes into public domain normally, you can just take, and I can go out tomorrow and make a, you know, a web photo distribution company and claim, you know, this public domain imagery for my own company and charge for it indefinitely. Is that, you know, that honestly kind of scares me a little bit, you know?
That does seem to be the law, though.
Yeah, but
that
it's like,
seems to be the case. They can curate it and say, look, we're providing a service by giving you this public domain works. Just give us some money for the effort we go through to do that.
I mean,
it sounds ridiculous, but it sounds also legal.
If you want to have some fun, grab some Dian Arbus or Robert Frank or Elliot Erwitt images and start posting them around the Lens site, and watch the emails pop into your box from their respective estates. And, you know, you can probably plead fair use, but it'll still remind you that there are people out there tracking this kind of stuff, which is the good side and bad side of these online tracking services.
Yeah.
No, it's weird. I don't like it.
I think that's if I can throw one more thing in here before we leave the subject. I'm just fascinated by the I don't know anything about her, but I wonder about, did she do this work on assignment? Was it just personal work? What is the economic sort of system behind being able to donate that much imagery? Because as a self-employed person, my first thought is, unfortunately, licensing this stuff because I got to make a living. So I'm curious, and I've not read anything about that. Did you find anything in there, Zach?
About, like, specifically to that, I believe that it looks like maybe she's part of she has like a nonprofit or something like that set up around her name, which, you know, I mean, like, at that point, then you can kind of just donate. I mean, obviously, it's also, you know, one of those, I mean, maybe she's just, because I've yet to find, and weirdly, I've yet to find, like, an interview with her. which I'm surprised because there's a lot of conversation about this happening, but not anything actually distinctly
Well,
her. I
she
mean, I
may
get
not be able to
legally,
talk about
you know.
because it's legal,
Yeah.
so that might be an issue. But I find what interesting here is that this is only a fraction of what she is planning to donate to the Library of Congress.
Yeah.
She plans the archive to be 100,000 images. So it's going to be interesting, and that this goes back to what we talked about on previous shows, where what happens to your work after you die.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she's doing this to essentially attain a little bit of immortality, I guess. That we all sort of crave and desire, I guess, with our work, in a sense. It's a reason we put it out there and hope that it's used. So there you go. Put your stuff out on the Library of Congress, and then Getty will take it for their own use.
God. And that's one way of getting, covered by Getty.
Right.
There you go. I think you have to be somebody though, but maybe I'm not.
Yeah.
All right.
One of my questions is in the current climate, of course, because Corbis doesn't really exist anymore. They've been folded into Getty. But was Corbis doing this before, or we don't know, or who's more creative at Getty than Corbis to have thought of this?
Yeah.
I don't know.
See,
that's what I was thinking too. Are there other services also doing essentially the same exact thing, but they haven't been sued by? I mean, this is a really unique case that this lady had so many works there that have been affected. That's why it's so fascinating. This is really a unique case. You're not going to see this happen again, I don't think.
Yeah.
Well, you don't see the scale, but you will see this idea of public domain, because all these institutions, museums, universities, all these people claim some kind of ownership of work that they frankly don't own. My wife's a fine art photographer, and she uses a lot of Edward Curtis imagery in her stuff, and she's getting dinged all the time by institutions, even though they don't actually have any right to it at all, but they own the prints, and so for her it's just easier to give them credit, but it's not. I mean, public domain is public domain, but institutions grab onto stuff all the time. So.
Yeah, and fair use isn't like a law; it's a precedent, or it's what is it like? It's basically a way to argue for use of stuff, I guess. But yeah, in this instance, what Getty did was, in my opinion, completely wrong, and they should be. I think something should be happening. We'll definitely see what happens, but something should happen with regard to it. All right, let's move on to our next topic. We're talking about vlogs. So if you don't know what vlogs are, they're video logs. Essentially, they grew out of sort of the YouTube phase, with people having easy and independent access to being able to upload videos of whatever they wanted to. So, I think it started out as, very simple, just people talking to their webcam about their day, but it seems to have expanded into, almost full-fledged productions with users like Casey Neistat, who is, if I'm not mistaken, either at or almost at 4 million subscribers as we talk about this.
Wow.
Yep, and he really took it, I think, and put it, made it really popular in that he started doing a once-a-day video log, about a year ago, almost a year ago, and it's exploded because of the level of quality that he puts into his work and the fact that he shoots it with DSLRs and pretty much any camera. But in terms of his editing and quality of work and just being pieces of interesting entertainment, he's done a lot. So, as visual journalism, what do we think about this? And by extension, vlogs and video logs and storytelling on the daily has become sort of something we've seen with, Snapchat stories and now Instagram stories. So what are our thoughts on these, mediums, ways to tell stories, visual journalism in general? Ron, how about you start it off?
Sure, okay, I'll start. I heard about Casey Neistat through Tim Ferriss's podcast that I listen to also regularly. I'd never heard of Casey Neistat before, and that was about 3 or 4 months ago he was on the podcast with Tim. Anyway, I watch every day. I'm hooked. It's really engaging. He does a lot of crazy stuff. He's entertaining. I've seen other vlogs now. I'd never watched any vlogs before, but now I watch a couple occasionally. Casey every day, and then the other ones occasionally when they post or when I feel like it. And it's entertaining, and I think it's a great way to tell stories. You have your audience engaged. Especially you got every day. They're logging into you every day to see what you're up to. Sure.
Ron, I see you have the Instagram handle at Ron Photo Hawaii there. So you're familiar with Instagram and the Instagram stories. Have you tried the service out yet?
I haven't tried the Instagram stories because I never tried Snapchat, which it is a carbon copy of, and I don't think I will be doing it. However, things could change. I never thought of an Instagram either, but here I am. We'll see what the future holds.
Okay. David, how about you? I know you're fully connected with everything. Have you experienced any vlogs, or what do you watch? What do you like to watch on the YouTube?
I actually don't watch that much YouTube stuff. I read Motion Arts Pro every day. I don't know if you know what that is. It's 5 days a week newsletter with 4 or 5 different topics around the world of video, and then I also read Photo Pro Daily, which are both written by David Schonauer, who for many years was the editor at American Photographer before the French. Yeah, Motion Arts Pro and Photo Pro Daily, and I read those every day. And it's more that's more around the sort of business of still photography indication, Motion Arts Pro or Photo Pro Daily. I did not know about Casey Neistat until my 23-and-a-half-year-old daughter said, if you're about 25 years younger, you should be doing what this guy did. And I looked at it and I got her point. Just in terms of, I have this blog, The Wells Point, which I do post podcasts, but nothing like every day, much less infrequent. But I could understand why it has an attraction, especially for her generation. 23 and a half, she's basically what's called a digital native, and most of us here are what are referred to as digital immigrants. And so she's had that from the get-go, and I can see the attraction. I've watched a couple of his. I haven't seen it on a daily basis, and I can certainly see the attraction. And obviously with 4 million subscribers, he probably has more advertising, muscle than, what do you call it? What's the congressional TV channel called?
Well, he probably has more
Yes.
He probably has a wider circulation than most newspapers and magazines.
Right. Well,
but David,
basically every single show on MSNBC combined, yeah.
Yeah.
They only have a couple 100,000 viewers and stuff like that. It's amazing when you actually see how low the numbers are for television, and then you see, these guys like Casey or was it PewDiePie or all these different guys that have this is another YouTube vlogger or whatever.
For the sake of your sanity, do not check out PewDiePie.
Yeah, don't do it. Yeah, no, he's been in commercials, so I looked him up and I was like, no, I'm way too old for this.
But to go back to MSNBC, does Casey Neistat do the kind of, I don't know what you call it, political storytelling, journalistic stuff?
News?
He does very sort of gonzo journalism / camera, what's it called?
Cinema Verite.
Cinema Verite, yes, thank you. Yeah, right. He does that. He's a filmmaker at heart, and he does. I've seen some other things. He's done some little sort of news type pieces, like he did one about the change, the change in New York about soda sizes and stuff like that. But honestly, though, he's really just about creating entertainment. What's that?
Yeah.
Bike lanes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But,
so he's got 4 million viewers, but I guess my question is, in comparing him to some of these other channels, is that really a fair comparison?
Well, I mean, I would say he has 4 million subscribers, so people that immediately get hit by anytime he posts something, you get an email, you get a notification saying that happens. I mean, but like the snowboarding video has 14.5 million views. It has, I mean, and his daily, or at least seems to be daily vlogs, each have 1 million to 3 million hits. So, I mean, it's kind of almost insane that a lot of these people, when you look at it, go back to, oh my God, I did a video piece for a 15-minute long video for Al Jazeera, and when we looked up their numbers, that was the saddest thing. That was the saddest day. We spent months and months and months doing this, and their nightly viewers at 9 p.m. were 10,000. I mean, obviously they were at 237 channel on Time Warner, and there's a whole bunch of other issues. But I mean, it's amazing when just think about the temporariness of news. A lot of it just never will be seen again. You know, no one's really watching the Chris Matthews show tomorrow in case they missed it. I mean, I suppose there's probably a way you can podcast it or whatever, but the numbers aren't there. So you basically, they're having their one viewership of 500,000 that are watching right then, and in a couple days, I'm sure that a lot of these guys had the same one. I mean, you look at Vice News's numbers they're not as good as Casey's, but they're still, a lot of their short docs and stuff like that have hundreds of thousands of hits. No one knows what the viewership is drop off, because I mean, if you looked into anything about Facebook videos, it's depressing. I mean, like, basically, I think it's like 5 seconds in they counted it as a view, but it's like you have an 80% drop off for the most part at 10 seconds in. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, I've done videos. I have a video that on one of the pages I run that has 250,000 views, and it basically, the bar graph looks like this. Actually, no, it's more like this, and then a drop off, and then, like, maybe 5,000 of those people actually finished the 10-minute video. Right. So so obviously the space for, like, commercial broadcasters and how to make money off of this isn't necessarily the same, but it's still, the power that online video has is amazing. So.
Yeah, that's what our organization does, the same thing. We have our broadcast in the Philippines, which is also live on the internet, and then we also archive at least certain stories on YouTube as well. That's the only way I see my stories that I produce is through YouTube. I don't watch them live. Yeah. So but we have that. So my stories can be seen over just the live viewing, but also in perpetuity through people viewing at later dates.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Casey Neistat's about 5,000 away, a little less than 5,000 away from his 4 million. So we'll be watching the counter on that. And,
well, he'll get the around the lens bump, and he'll make it.
Oh my God! there are organizations that would die to have by this channel. Let me tell you, I have to turn down, like, Coke, Pepsi. Man, yep. They asked to sponsor us, but you know what? I won't sell out.
Yeah, I know. No.
Around the Lens does not sell out for anyone. We will remain ad-free until I can find somebody who will pay us.
Your integrity is astounding.
Honestly, I will run ads for literally anything if someone pays me. I don't care what it is.
I hope you have the success of mail time like Casey does. People mailing you cameras and whatnot.
Oh my God.
Studio equipment.
That would be it. Listen, I will shill for any piece of gear you're willing to send me. I have no morals. I will. You want a good review? Just pay me. No. Anyways, so yeah, I mean, obviously, this guy has found success. I mean, literally, he went up 3 million here in less than a year. But I mean, have any of you thought about? I mean, do you guys? I know, obviously, Ron, you survive on online video content, but is a vlog something you would do? Any of you? Is that something that intrigues any of you? Would you do something like that?
I'll go ahead. Yeah, I'll answer that one really quickly here. Not relating to photojournalism or anything media related. That one of my passions is health and nutrition and exercise, things like that. So I'm well known in Twitter under another handle for my barefoot running and my nutrition advice. So I was thinking about doing a daily vlog about how I live nutritionally and my exercise routines. But when I think about the time involved, like what Casey does, the hours he spends editing it, I decided not to. It's too difficult to do that and have an adult life for me. So my solution is one of my students, because another thing I do is I give seminars in the Philippines to the students there. I've been in talks with one of my students about doing my editing for me, and if he can do it for me, I could see that being a future for me as a sideline.
I like it. Yeah. I like it. Get people to do stuff for you.
Outsourcing.
I was in the military.
All right, cool. All right, well, I think we should probably try to pull the handle back on the brake of Casey Neistat promotion. Otherwise, he's going to have to owe us money. So let's go on to our next topic. the GoPro has apparently leaked themselves a little bit of GoPro 5 action going on there with a video, like a user tutorial type video they published that happened to have the number 5, GoPro 5, in the name of the video. So GoPro, obviously it's the action camera of choice. I have the Hero 4. As soon as I found out, you can shoot 4K with those things, I was on that. I love the GoPro. I don't use it nearly enough, but I do love having the GoPro. So not a lot of details in this leak. It looks like some slight design changes, but that's about it. So not too much, again, to talk about with regard to what the GoPro 5 might have. Of course, we can theorize. So what do you think it might have? And also, does GoPros play any sort of role in your work? Zach, why don't you start us off?
I think I have a GoPro 2 or 3, and then another, I think, first-gen GoPro that I only use occasionally when I basically go on really long road trips, and I just set it up and do time-lapse. But the only thing, I just keep looking for a longer battery life on them, and that's really the only thing that, I'll buy whatever the new one is. If this is new, if there's a new one, I'll buy it if it has more than an hour and a half battery life, without a battery pack and a other thing or whatever, because it's just at least the ones I have you can't trickle charge them, so that also makes it problematic. So I don't know, a lot of the uses that I would use, whether it be during protests or events, and just have it on my head, on my helmet, or on my chest, would be nice. But the fact that they only last, at least the ones I have, last an hour if I'm lucky, then I don't really have that much interest in them anymore, at least for my work, especially considering now the new ones are like $500. And you know how much a T4i is? It's $350. So I mean, there's a certain point when, obviously, they're not waterproof or whatever, but if you care about just a scene where you're gonna have it potentially destroy your camera or whatever, I don't get why movie sets and different things like that use the cameras anymore. But yeah, I've never been really a huge GoPro fan, so kind of the wrong person. I actually have some of the other cameras that are like that I've come across. I actually like more, but again, just for my work, I very rarely use cameras like that anymore.
Well, let me jump in, because I'm going to kind of echo that. I don't also use GoPros, but I actually do use some of the Olympus Tough cameras, which are waterproof and shockproof and all that. And I actually use them a fair amount for some of the videos. Like recently, I had put it in the bottom of the machine that was making yogurt, and I dip them underwater pretty regularly, and also weird angles, pieces on motorcycles in terms of potentially destroying them. Well, ironically, I've never destroyed one. So I certainly see the place for them. I just have never actually found enough of a difference in the GoPro versus what I have to do it. And I think your point's well taken. I actually wonder if GoPro might be pricing themselves out, because there are a lot of competitors out there now making action cameras at a notably lower price point. So they may be losing some of the market.
I was in Hong Kong late last year, and obviously tech is kind of big there. And just walking down some random street, and for $50 they had a GoPro. It looked like a GoPro 4, one of the black models, and a buddy of mine bought it, and I'm telling you, the video is exactly the same. Everything across the board is exactly the same. $60 freaking dollars. And you can buy all the cases or whatever for it online as well, because it's almost the same size. I don't think it's the same size as the GoPro. There's like a knockoff model that you can buy on Amazon that's like $200, that has all the same case sizes, but this one, obviously just on some random street corner at a vendor, was $60. And I go, you can find these things super easy now, and I don't understand, for what they're giving us, the fact that the price just keeps going up.
Yeah. Up.
And also, I mean, just also the model. I mean, like, what I'm actually super interested. I really want to get a hold of one of the Polaroid cubes. I don't know why. It just intrigues me a little bit more. I think just the simplicity of it is so much better. The fact that there's, if I remember correctly, with the Polaroid one, there's not really a menu system. It's either on or off. And honestly, I like, for what I would use it for, I like that idea. Just a one-click button on. I mean, like the amount of times that I think that I've taken video with a GoPro camera, and it just nothing was there afterwards because I didn't hit the button twice, or the light didn't go on, or the whatever. And I don't understand. That's one of the most basic, simple things imaginable, and I don't understand why that's just not a simple, just record on. I mean, these aren't police security police body cameras. There's no reason why I don't want them to be turned on when I turn them on. So,
Right.
anyway.
Well, the Polaroid was a copy of the GoPro Session.
Yeah.
It's also the same thing. You put one button, right? And then
Yeah.
Wi-Fi controlled through the your smartphone. You can control it through your smartphone for the settings, whatever. But you're right about the cheap. About GoPros in general. For me, they're just so expensive toys that don't really fit in my workflow. However, as you were saying, you can buy cheap knockoffs. This cost me about $20.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
1080, 30 frames per second.
Yeah.
It holds a 32 gigabyte micro SD card. I can control it through Wi-Fi, and when I plug it into my car charger, my micro USB, it functions as a dash cam.
Yeah.
So everywhere I go, I get 1 minute loops. Excuse me, 1 minute shots until it fills up, and then it starts again. It fills it up again. So if I need to find 1 minute of video, I can do like that, or I can share it. I can do things like that, and $20, and it's great. I don't know if it's on quality for a GoPro, but it's darn good enough for what I use it for. In fact, I'm looking forward to the next time I could do a story where I can use this. But fisheye 170-degree angle, a little bit hard to work into my workflow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, the GoPro 4 I have, again, it's getting to the point where, like, a lot of technology, it's beyond what I need to do, and
Right.
I don't need to upgrade. You know, I can shoot 4K, 30p video with it. I mean, what is GoPro going to offer in a follow-on that's really going to intrigue me enough to jump aboard? I mean, what, 4K 30? I mean, I'm sorry, 4K 60? That's the only thing, really.
Right.
Making it 4K at slower motion, or night vision, or infrared, or... But even then, I mean, am I going to get that? Probably not. I mean, I barely use my GoPros as it is. I got a Hero 3 and a Hero 4. I mean, I just don't break them out enough. I mean...
Especially when your
YouTube-
cell phone can do half of this stuff now. Like most iPhones can do all the same things, and so you just buy a $60 life-proof case, and you have yourself something that you always have with you too. Like if obviously I don't live near the beach. I live in upstate New York, unfortunately. So I have to, if I'm going to go somewhere, I have to remember to bring that equipment. If I'm going to go somewhere, my cell phone, if I have either just even one of those water pouches or whatever, I have what I need. You know, and the quality, honestly, I mean, I know they've gotten a little bit better with the 4Ks and stuff like that. I'm never going to work with 4K video on a GoPro. I'm just never going to do it. Like I'm not going to edit video that I have to do color correction and do all this work on video that I shot with a GoPro as opposed to one of my cameras. So I don't know. Like I said, they're not necessarily for me. The thing that you have looks like pretty much exactly like the random thing I bought on my weirdly, you know what I could do? I could actually fly. I got a trip to Hong Kong for $650. I could fly out to Hong Kong, buy a bunch of that stuff, almost for just for like $400 more than than buying a new GoPro, because I'm sure this one's going to be $600. So so that's it. Don't buy the new GoPro. Just buy a round trip ticket to Hong Kong and you'll be all set.
I do watch. I watch a program on YouTube occasionally. I found out recently it's called Tech Moan, and this guy does product reviews, whatever, like that, technology stuff. He has a
Way
GoPro.
to go, Ron.
I'm sorry.
Ron, you just crashed YouTube.
Oh, dear.
From the around lens bump. Just seeing
Say a
it.
bad word.
No,
sorry.
because you crashed YouTube because of the around the lens bump.
The round the lens bump, yeah.
You just gave it right
Around
now.
the lens. I know, that's true. He's gonna
Never prepared for what we
Anyway,
can do.
one of his comments was, I don't know if the new GoPro 5 has it or not, but most action cams do not have a audio jack for an external microphone.
Yeah.
But there is one now. It's called the Git 2, I believe it's called, GIT2, and it has you can do audio in for an external microphone. Plus, you have the waterproof cases all like that too.
Yeah.
So I think if GoPro wants to be remain the top dog and be relevant, they have to also have external microphone input, as well as, you know, like we said, 4K, 60 frames per second, things like that. They have to step it up beyond just what they. I think that GoPro 5 had a touch screen added. I think that was the major thing about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is when it's in a case.
Right,
You know,
and the GoPro was like you said, 500, and the other thing I saw, the Get 2 was like $200,
exactly,
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I just looked at the Get to. It's 159.
And there you go. Yeah, 150. Yeah, cheap as dirt, and it's got
External
just as good. Yeah.
line in for the audio, which is a pretty big thing for what I would be doing. So yeah. All right.
All right. Cool.
Yeah, there are other
let's
options
close
out
out this show. What's that?
No, I'm sorry. I'm just saying there's other options than GoPro. That's all.
Yes.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, again, there's tons. It's like the same thing with cell phones. You know, you can get the top of the line, or you can get a decent quality one for half the price or less. So it's just a matter of how long is GoPro going to be able to ride on that sort of name brand recognition. Yeah. But look, let's go ahead and close out today's show with our picks of the week, our eye catchers. Ron, why don't you start us off? I know you got a pretty neat device for our eye catcher.
No, I like to tell everybody I'm so proud of the fact that my news organization, most of the stuff we shoot is with cell phones. We have big cameras, we have DSLRs, but most of the time I'm on the street, I've always got my cell phone. Yeah. So my pick of the week is this thing called a UO Bird. It's a gimbal, 3-axis gimbal for your cell phone. So you can get really smooth video with your cell phone, and it astoundingly improves the quality of your video. And I think we'll have the link in the show notes. Is that correct?
Yes, indeed.
Right, in case people want to check it out.
Ron? I'm sorry, David?
Well, my call-out, actually, eye catcher, was something that was posted on Time Magazine recently, which is basically time.com, 2016 on violence. And it's a really brilliant piece talking about the place of violence in the current presidential campaign and the expansion of violence. And I don't want to get started on politics per se, but what's so compelling about it is a reminder that sort of one of the underlying ideas of democracy is that we disagree, but we don't actually result to violence. And if you've worked overseas at all, and I used to work a lot in the Middle East, I now work a lot in India, these are other cultures where people haven't kind of fully got their head around the idea of disagreeing but not resulting in violence. And this piece is tracing how the current political campaign has actually moved us backwards on that underlying idea within this democracy. And it's quite disheartening, and it's also a great portrayal of it in terms of talking about how it's happened, and I encourage people to take a look at it. It's on the Time site, and I guess it will be on the show notes as well.
Yep.
All right, cool. Zach?
And now that I posted this, I'm not 100% sure if this is actually something we talked about last week, but Getty Olympic photos are shot, edited, and shared in 120 seconds.
Wow.
And and it just goes back to this conversation I had with a photo editor over at Al Jazeera a while, where I was pitching him. I'm trying to remember what conference I was going to, and they're like, and basically his one-line response was, "You can't compete with Getty." And it's just 100% true. It's just, trying to do spot news or whatever, and trying to upload. There's no way that I can even the basic. Now, obviously, the Olympics is its own deal, and speed is a different thing. But I mean, like, I see the Getty the pro hired, not just freelance Getty photographers, but I see them, how quick they're filing and how they're doing it. Same thing with AP. And it's kind of always depressing to like think about how much money that I would have to probably spend just to be able to compete with them. And I'm like, yeah, not worth it for the $5 that Time buys a photo from my wire for. So it's just, it's going to be interesting going forward, seeing, what happens with Getty, after the Corbis, and kind of the big wires, what happens with them if they're able to stick around in the form that they are and be able to just kind of overpower all of the other wires with their might and speed like they do now,
Well, an economist would argue they're a classic example of the one percenters.
Yeah.
And people talk about the 1%ers in terms of the economy and wealth in this country, but I read a fascinating piece where a guy was talking about creatives and all sorts of other fields, and this guy is arguing, Robert Frank, actually Cornell, was arguing that if you take out what it is somebody does, there are certain people in pretty much every field, and we can run down in our field. Vincent LaForêt is a 1%er in our line of work. And so it sounds like, and that's one of the reasons I don't do that kind of work anymore, by the way, is even back then I wasn't fast enough. And now, of course, I would get run over. So I think your point is probably well taken, is we're going to end up in a 1% thing, top of the pyramid in every genre. And so I'm trying to be that, at least in my little market, in my particular business, because that's the only way I think people are going to survive.
Yeah. No. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, my pick this week is basically the eye catcher was from the Olympics. If you haven't heard, there was a photographer out there who got robbed of like $40,000 of gear in like 10 seconds. He was at a cafe, and this woman came up to him and distracted him while another guy stole his stuff. And it's pretty crazy how like savvy the thieves are down there. I was watching another video where they were able to basically pull the lens off this guy's camera. Oh man. That was so pissed me off. Anyways, of course, the Olympics are the big news of the week, big news of the next couple of weeks. So wanted to make sure I put that story in there because I thought it was interesting. And we will talk about the Olympics. I'm actually planning a super mega special awesome show with as many Olympic photographers, photojournalists, broadcasters as I can get my hands on. So if you shot the Olympics and you're listening to this, all one of you, by all means, let me know, and we're going to have you on the show at a date to be determined. I'll probably announce it next week, but it will probably be after the Olympics, so sometime after August 3rd, perhaps that Wednesday or Thursday following. I haven't quite decided yet, but we are going to do that. Just like we did with the RNC, DNC show, we're going to have a super mega show talking just about the Olympics, so stay tuned for that. But anyways, that's our show for this week. I want to thank our panelists for coming on. Panelists, where can people learn more about you and your work? Ron?
Sure, I'll start. Sorry. My Instagram page, you can see my still photographs that I put up for public viewing. That is Ron Photo Hawaii, all one word. You can check out our news live streaming if you were so inclined, eaglebroadcasting.net, and click on Watch Net 25 Live. And then the last thing is our YouTube channel for this TV station, which is Eagle News Evening, where you can see my archived, not only mine, but all of our archived productions.
Yeah, I checked that out, and I don't know if you had any involvement on this, but the one where they turned cow dung into clothing, that was pretty interesting.
I'm not sure I can offer anything quite that interesting, but you can find virtually all of my stuff in all the social media channels: Facebook, Vimeo, Twitter, Tumblr, and of course Instagram. Always at the Wells Point, and then the blog that I also run is called thewellspoint.com. So basically, anything that you search for under the Wells Point will direct you to some of the content that I'm posting regularly.
Do you find that Vimeo's like a viable sort of video platform still? And do you have like a Vimeo Pro account, or you just use the free account?
I'm still using the free account mostly as a way to post either my stuff or to post a version that will be like a refined version. The client wanted A, B, C, and D, and they kept something in that I didn't think necessarily made a strong video. So I'll do the author's cuts, if you will, on the Vimeo site, and that's where I'll send people who are looking to hire me. So it's really more for that. I'm not really doing Vimeo on demand yet, because for my market, there's not enough money to be made there playing the actual videos.
All right. Zach?
And as always, you can find me at aroundthelens.com, but also for my personal work, zdroberts.com, and basically ZD Roberts across all platforms, Instagram, Twitter, and I think even Facebook. I think you can find me that way. So.
And I am all over the place as djmphoto.com, but of course always go to aroundthelens.com to find out more about me, our panelists, all our shows, the ways you can connect to us. And now we're going to go do our bonus topic, which again, if you're a Patreon subscriber, you get access to immediately. If not, you'll just a week. But That's it. We're going to have a great little post chat, and we will see you all next week, if not. And have a good night. I am David J. Murphy for Zach Roberts and Ron Hamilton and David Wells. This has been Around the Lens, episode 35, and we're out.